information that was relevant to the public. That's a terrible thing that happened. That's election interference.
In the darkest corners of space exploration history, a chilling secret lies concealed. To unearth the long-buried truth, Elon Musk, the visionary founder of SpaceX, has embarked on a daring expedition like never before. While the eyes of the world were fixed on the glories of Yuri Gagarin's triumphant orbit, an unspeakable horror lurked in the shadows. 3 forgotten Soviet cosmonauts were secretly wiped from history, forever hidden from public knowledge. But were the deaths of the 3 cosmonauts the result of a heinous act of sabotage? Or did they encounter something mysterious and otherworldly during their ill-fated space exploration? Join us on this riveting voyage as Elon Musk unveils the terrible truth about the 3 Soviet cosmonauts who were brutally killed. In the captivating history between Musk, the visionary founder of SpaceX, and the Russian side of the space industry, led by Dmitry Rogozin, the Director General of the Russian space agency Roscosmos. Their intriguing rivalry has been marked by a series of playful banter and cutting remarks exchanged on social media over the years. In 2014, tensions escalated when the United States imposed financial sanctions on several Russian officials, including Rogozin, following Russia's controversial invasion of Crimea. Seizing the opportunity to respond, Rogozin took a swipe at NASA by suggesting they use a trampoline to send astronauts to orbit. At the time, the US was heavily dependent on Russia's Soyuz spacecraft for transportation to the ISS. However, the tables turned in May 2020, when SpaceX successfully launched its Crew Dragon spacecraft, carrying NASA astronauts to the ISS for the first time. With a touch of sarcasm, Musk humorously countered Rogozin's earlier remark, stating that the trampoline is working during a press conference after the successful launch. Throughout their intriguing history, there have been moments of improvement in their relationship. In September 2021, Rogozin praised Musk in an interview with CNN and even extended an invitation for tea at his home. Yet, as with any heated rivalry, it didn't take long for things to sour again. In May 2022, Rogozin accused Musk of supplying Ukraine with Starlink terminals and supporting fascist elements, to which Musk responded with a tongue-in-cheek tweet, joking that he couldn't die under mysterious circumstances. Despite their public sparring, both Musk and Rogozin are revered leaders in their respective space industries, contributing significantly to space exploration. Their rivalry reflects the competitive nature of the space industry and ongoing tensions between their respective countries. The rivalry between Musk and Rogozin, however fascinating, is merely a tiny reflection of the fierce competition that has historically existed between Russia and the United States in the realm of space exploration. The roots of this rivalry trace back to the Cold War era when the space race emerged as a 20th century competition. It was ignited by the Soviet Union's historic launch of Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, in October 1957, which left the US with a sense of alarm and anxiety over the perceived technological superiority of their Soviet counterparts. According to Musk, in response to the Soviet Union's perceived technological success, NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, was established on October 1, 1958. The space race began with a series of Soviet triumphs, including Yuri Gagarin's historic orbit in the spacecraft Vostok 1 in April 1961. The Americans quickly caught up, with Alan Shepard becoming the first American in space the following month, and John Glenn orbiting the Earth in February 1962, Musk said. Soviet success in the space race prompted U.S. President John F. Kennedy to announce the Apollo program with the ambitious goal of landing a man on the moon by the end of the decade. This culminated in American astronaut Neil Armstrong becoming the first human to walk on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission on July 20, 1969. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, both countries continued to explore the solar system and beyond through various space missions. Despite the competitive atmosphere, there were moments of cooperation, such as the Apollo-Soyuz test project in July 1975, when American astronauts and Soviet cosmonauts docked their spacecraft together in orbit. However, amidst the achievements, both nations also faced devastating disasters. In particular, the United States experienced the tragic loss of lives in the Challenger space shuttle accident on January 28, 1986, when the shuttle broke apart just 73 seconds into its flight, resulting in the deaths of all 7 crew members on board. Similarly, the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster occurred on February 1, 2003, when the seal on one of the solid rocket boosters failed, causing hot gases to escape and damage the external fuel tank, leading to an explosion during re-entry. Tragically, all 7 crew members on board lost their lives. Both of these disasters were devastating for NASA and the families of the astronauts and cosmonauts who perished. They sparked significant changes in safety procedures and culture to prevent future accidents. On the Russian side, the Soyuz 11 disaster resulted in the death of 3 cosmonauts, Georgy Dobrovolsky, Viktor Patsayev, and Vladislav Volkov. Dobrovolsky was a Soviet cosmonaut who led the crew of the Soyuz 11 spacecraft, becoming the world's first space station crew aboard Salyut 1. Tragically, during re-entry on June 30, 1971, all 3 cosmonauts lost their lives. Georgy Dobrovolsky was posthumously awarded honors, including the title of Hero of the Soviet Union, and his ashes were placed in the Kremlin Wall necropolis on Red Square in Moscow. Vladislav Volkov, born on November 23, 1935 in Moscow, Russia, was an aviation engineer who graduated from the Moscow Aviation Institute in 1959. He contributed to the development of the Vostok and Voskhod spacecraft at the Korolev Design Bureau. As a cosmonaut, Volkov flew on the Soyuz 7 and Soyuz 11 missions. During his second mission in 1971, tragedy struck as the Soyuz 11 spacecraft's re-entry led to the loss of his life, along with 2 other cosmonauts. Despite the heart-wrenching loss, Volkov was posthumously awarded honors, including the title of Hero of the Soviet Union and 2 Orders of Lenin. His ashes found their resting place in the Kremlin Wall on Red Square in Moscow. Viktor Patsayev, born on June 19, 1933, in Aktyubinsk, Kazakhstan, was a design engineer on the Soyuz 11 mission, which lasted a record-breaking 24 days in space. Unfortunately, he too lost his life during the tragic re-entry of the spacecraft. Posthumously, Patsayev was honored with the title of Hero of the Soviet Union and the Order of Lenin, and he was recognized as a pilot cosmonaut of the USSR. To uncover the real truth behind the Soyuz 11 disaster, we journey back to the morning of June 30, 1971 in Kazakhstan, where recovery personnel eagerly awaited the return of the cosmonauts. The Soyuz 11 crew, Georgy Dobrovolsky, Viktor Patsayev, and Vladislav Volkov, had completed a record-breaking 24-day voyage to the world's first space station, Salyut 1. In Elon Musk's revelation, as the descent module's parachute system deployed as planned, the spacecraft landed on its side, with recovery forces ready to greet the astronauts. However, upon opening the hatch, a devastating discovery awaited them. The 3 cosmonauts inside Soyuz 11 had tragically lost their lives. This shocking revelation sent shockwaves through the Soviet space program, prompting significant safety changes and equipment upgrades that continue to be utilized in space missions today. The loss of these brave astronauts had profound ramifications for the Soviet space program, but their sacrifice paved the way for improved safety measures that protect future space explorers. After the Apollo 11 moon landing, the Soviet program approved the Salyut project, aiming to launch the world's first orbiting space station for astronauts to live, research, and visit. The Soviets, facing difficulties with their N-1 heavy-lift rocket for lunar missions, shifted focus to space firsts to stay ahead of the Americans. According to Musk, in June 1970, the Soyuz 9 inches mission marked the beginning of long-duration orbital missions, with cosmonauts Andrei Nikolaev and Vitaly Sevastyanov spending 18 days aboard the Soyuz 7KOK spacecraft, conducting biomedical experiments, Earth observations, and stellar navigation exercises. On April 19, 1971, the Salyut 1-inch space station launched atop a Proton-K rocket and successfully reached Earth's orbit. It was designed by Vladimir Chelomey in response to the U.S. Air Force's Manned Orbiting Laboratory project. The Soyuz 10 mission, led by Vladimir Shatilov, was the first launch of the new Soyuz 7 KOKS spacecraft, featuring a docking system and an interior transfer tube. Notably, it was the first time humans interacted with an operating space station, marking a significant achievement in space exploration just 10 years after Yuri Gagarin's historic flight. This milestone occurred 2 years before NASA's Skylab program. On April 20th, a spacecraft attempted to dock with Salyut 1, the new space station. Unfortunately, due to a problem with its flight computer and attitude control system, the docking process failed. The crew had to abandon the mission and return to Earth. Despite this setback, the Soyuz 11 crew, led by cosmonaut Alexei Leonov and including flight engineer Valery Kubasov and research engineer Pyotr Kolodin, were ready for a June 4th launch. However, just a day before the scheduled launch, an issue arose during a routine medical assessment. One of the crew members was diagnosed with a last-minute ailment and had to be replaced by a backup crew member. Unlike NASA's practice, the Soviet program replaced the entire prime crew. Doctors in Moscow had discovered a dark patch on Kubasov's lung and diagnosed him with early-stage tuberculosis. The backup crew, including Georgy Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev, stepped in to take their place. According to Musk, this unexpected turn of events added a sense of urgency and uncertainty to the mission, but the backup crew was determined to forge ahead. They were about to embark on a journey that would make history, but little did they know of the dangers that lay ahead during their stay at Salyut 1. Kubasov's diagnosis turned out to be incorrect. He quickly recovered from an allergy to a tree insecticide. Despite this, the Soyuz program leadership decided to stick with the backup crew, promoting them for a June 6th launch of Soyuz 11. The new Soyuz 11 crew leader, Georgy Dobrovolsky, was born in Odessa, Ukraine, and had been a cosmonaut since 1963. He was eager to embark on his first space journey after 8 years in the cosmonaut corps. Volkov, the flight engineer for Soyuz 11, had prior spaceflight experience as a member of the Soyuz 7 crew in October 1969. Like Volkov, Viktor Patsayev, a civilian, worked for the Korolev Design Bureau, and he was also part of the backup crew. With the crew now prepared and the launch date set, the world awaited the historic mission of Soyuz 11. However, what awaited them in space would challenge their courage and endurance like never before. Patsayev, a civil engineer from Aktobe, Kazakhstan, and married with 2 children, was part of the 1968 Civilian Specialist Group 3, selected to go into space on Soyuz 11. The spacecraft launched successfully from Baikonur on June 6, 1971, and docked with the Salyut 1 space station after 24 hours, overcoming previous docking challenges. Upon arrival at Salyut 1, the crew encountered a foul odor, leading them to replace 2 fans and ensure the air was safe to breathe. The station, with its pressurized volume of 99 cubic meters, provided significantly more comfort compared to the Soyuz 11's cramped 9 cubic meters. It was the most comfortable crew spacecraft ever flown. The Salyut 1 station featured various compartments, including a docking module with a tunnel, and the Orion UV Stellar Telescope, a forward work compartment with seats, control panels, and cameras, and a larger rear work compartment for experiments, a treadmill, sleep stations, and a food refrigeration unit. It was well equipped to support the crew's 30-day stay, making it a groundbreaking achievement in space exploration. Salyut 1, also known as Cellular 1, had an unpressurized compartment at the back equipped with thrusters, a deorbit engine, and solar panels similar to those on the Soyuz 7K OKS spacecraft. It featured additional modules and rendezvous antennae using advanced technology still used today. During their stay, the Soyuz crew conducted biological studies and established a routine for living and working in orbit. They grew beards and trained on a treadmill to stay fit, but the treadmill's vibrations affected the entire station. Viktor Patsayev made history by celebrating his 38th birthday in space, and he was the first to use an astronomy telescope in space, observing stars like Vega and Beta Centauri to gather unique data. To maximize research time, the crew adopted a shift system, ensuring at least one cosmonaut was working at all times. Their extraordinary experiences and achievements were showcased on Soviet television and idolized throughout the country, leaving a lasting impact on space exploration. The Soviet scientists realized that round-the-clock procedures affected the cosmonauts' sleep and performance. Despite this, the crew conducted fascinating experiments, growing Chinese cabbage and onions in the Oasis 1 plant growth facility and testing their circulatory system with the VITA equipment. The VITA system later evolved into the Chibis apparatus, still in use on the Russian part of the International Space Station. the cosmonauts regularly underwent lung function tests and provided blood samples for examination. They also engaged in daily television broadcasts, known as Cosmovision, showcasing their scientific studies and daily life on Salyut 1. Moreover, they made history by voting in Soviet elections from space, a remarkable feat. Alongside their scientific pursuits, they observed the sun as part of their scheduled activities. The crew's dedication to science and space exploration left a lasting impact on the Soviet Union and the world. On June 16th, a significant event occurred when cosmonaut Vladislav Volkov noticed a burning odor and dense black smoke rising from the back of the station. Due to secrecy demands, Volkov relayed this to Mission Control using a code word. However, as the ground controllers had forgotten the code, Volkov had to communicate the emergency. The crew quickly evacuated to Soyuz 11, where they managed to extinguish the fire and turn off and on the equipment to address the issue. Nevertheless, the fire and other problems prompted a decision to end the Soyuz 11 mission 6 days early. On June 26th, the cosmonauts completed all experiments and focused on putting the station into storage mode and packing for the return to Earth. They faced challenges with limited space on Soyuz and had to prioritize high-priority experiment samples. After resolving hatch issues with help from cosmonaut Alexei Yeliseyev, communication between Mission Control and the Soyuz 11 crew continued until June 29th at 21:25 Moscow time. The conclusion of the mission marked a significant moment in space exploration history. Soyuz 11 undocked from Salyut 1, and the crew, dressed in fabric flight suits, took images to document the space station's condition, similar to subsequent missions. They prepared for the return journey to Earth after receiving instructions from Mission Control. The deorbit engine fired as planned at 13:30 Moscow time on June 30th, 1971. However, after this point, communication with the crew was lost. At 14:47 Moscow time, the orbital and propulsion module separated from the descent module when the spacecraft was at 116 kilometers in altitude. This sudden loss of communication caused alarm and concern among those monitoring the mission. The fate of the Soyuz 11 crew remained unknown until further investigations and recovery efforts were initiated. During the descent, a critical issue occurred. The separation of the orbital and service modules activated a pressure equalization valve prematurely. Explosive bolts firing simultaneously caused rapid depressurization, putting the crew in mortal danger. Elon Musk reveals that they had only 13 seconds of useful consciousness to address the problem. The crew, led by Provolsky and Patsayev, tried to solve it, but it was too late. Even with post-accident testing, it was determined that manually closing the valve would have taken 52 seconds, far longer than they had to act. Tragedy struck when all three cosmonauts died about 110 seconds after the module separated. Initially, there was hope in Mission Control as radar in Crimea, Ukraine, picked up Soyuz 11 on a regular re-entry route. However, upon opening the hatch, recovery personnel on the step realized the grim reality. Despite medics' efforts, the cosmonauts had already passed away more than 30 minutes before the news reached the public through a test broadcast that stated, "Test reports." The incident had a profound impact, highlighting the risks and challenges of space exploration and emphasizing the importance of safety measures. The tragic deaths of the Soyuz 11 crew sparked an immediate investigation into the cause of the accident. While the crew lay in state, they were posthumously honored with the prestigious Hero of the Soviet Union Gold Stars. In a gesture of unity, NASA astronaut Tom Stafford traveled to Moscow to represent the United States at the cosmonauts' official funeral. Stafford even served as one of the pallbearers for the crew's cremated remains, which were respectfully placed in the Kremlin wall. Premier Leonid Brezhnev, along with other high-ranking officials and ordinary citizens, came to pay their respects, demonstrating the deep impact and sense of loss felt by the nation and the international space community. After the investigation, efforts to rebuild the Soyuz spacecraft and its pressure equalization valves commenced, but the disaster's impact extended beyond the Soviet space program. In a unique instance of Cold War rivals learning from each other, Apollo 15 lunar landing crew members Dave Scott and Jim Irwin chose to wear their A7L spacesuits during their ascent from the lunar surface, inspired by the Soyuz incident. Subsequent uncrewed Soyuz missions in 1972 confirmed improvements to the spacecraft, leading to the development of the K-launch and entry suit. This innovative suit, also known as the Space Falcon in Russian, was designed for cosmonauts to wear during the launch and entry phases of Soyuz flights. This development not only enhanced crew safety, but also opened the path for many aspects of living in space that we now take for granted. The ultimate sacrifice made by the Soyuz 11 crew, Provolsky, Volkov, and Patsayev, occurred 50 years ago, making them the only humans to have died outside our planet. Their legacy resonates in the countless lives they've impacted, as billions of people, including all subsequent space travelers, owe them a debt of appreciation for their contributions to space exploration. Their memory lives on in redesigns, memorials, and advancements that emerged from the tragic events of that fateful June morning in 1971. Thanks for watching another episode of Voyager. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.